Dozens of family members of hostages held by Hamas stormed a committee meeting in Israel's parliament, demanding a deal to win their loved ones' release. Today is Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024. And this is the Dunkley Report. Dozens of family members of hostages held by Hamas stormed a committee meeting in Israel's parliament, demanding a deal to win their loved ones' release. Meanwhile, in Brussels, European foreign ministers on Monday joined growing international calls for Israel to negotiate on the creation of a Palestinian state in the aftermath of the war. Pressure is increasing on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has dug in on both fronts. He insisted to the Israeli public that pursuing the devastating offensive in Gaza is the only way to bring home hostages. At the same time, he has rejected the United States' vision for a post-war resolution, saying he will never allow a Palestinian state. The U.S. and British militaries have bombed 8 locations used by the Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen. It is the second time the two allies have conducted coordinated retaliatory strikes on the rebels' missile launching capabilities. Officials say the U.S. and U.K. used warship and submarine-launched Tomahawk missiles and fighter jets to take out Houthi missile storage sites and launchers. The joint operation comes about 10 days after U.S. and British warships and fighter jets struck more than 60 targets in 28 locations. That was the first U.S. military response to what has been a persistent campaign of Houthi drone and missile attacks on commercial ships since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. The U.S. Navy's top Mideast commander says Iran is very directly involved in ship attacks by Yemen's Houthi rebels during Israel's war against Hamas. Vice Admiral Brad Cooper stopped short of saying Tehran directed individual attacks by the Houthis in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. But Cooper acknowledged in an interview with the Associated Press on Monday that attacks associated with Iran have expanded from previously threatening just the Persian Gulf and its Strait of Hormuz into waters across the wider Middle East. He described the Houthi attacks as the most significant hostile actions against merchant shipping in 2 generations. Cooper is the head of the Navy's 5th Fleet. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has opened a controversial Hindu temple that was built on the ruins of a razed historic mosque. It is a political triumph for the populist leader, who is seeking to transform the country from a secular democracy into a Hindu state. The temple is dedicated to Hinduism's Lord Ram. It sits on a site in the northern city of Ayodhya, where Hindu mobs tore down a mosque 3 decades ago. Its fraught history is still an open wound for many Muslims, who have increasingly come under attack by Hindu nationalist groups. India's top politicians, religious leaders, and celebrities have gathered in the holy city of Ayodhya for the partial opening of a grand temple for one of Hinduism's most revered deities, Lord Ram. Modi's Hindu Nationalist Party is using the elaborate consecration ceremony to lobby the country's Hindu majority ahead of a general election. The temple stands at the site of a 16th century mosque a Hindu mob destroyed in 1992. Hindus believe Lord Ram was born at the same place, and Monday's consecration marks the homecoming of their venerated god, an occasion celebrated with prayers and the lighting of lamps at homes and temples. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk is vowing to keep supporting Ukraine against Russia's nearly 2-year-old invasion. He announced a new military aid package during a visit to Kiev on Monday. It includes a loan to purchase larger weapons and a commitment to finding ways of manufacturing weapons and munitions together. After meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Tusk said they had reached an understanding to resolve through bilateral talks their differences over grain shipments and trucking. Those issues recently soured ties between the neighbors. Tusk, who returned to power last month and is keen to show that a change in government won't alter its Ukraine policy, also met with his Ukrainian counterpart, Denis Shmyhal. Officials say a magnitude 7.1 earthquake in a remote part of China's western Xinjiang region has killed at least 3 people and caused extensive damage in freezing weather. The officials suggest that the area's sparse population contributed to the very strong quake's low death toll. 5 people were injured, 2 of them seriously, and thousands of people fled their homes. At least 47 houses collapsed. Authorities say power and train service have been restored. Tremors also were felt in neighboring Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan. Russia's foreign minister has clashed with the United States and Ukraine's supporters at a UN meeting where Moscow ruled out any peace plan backed by Kiev and the West, and China warned that further global chaos could impact the slowing global economy. Sergei Lavrov, Russia's top diplomat, told the Security Council Monday that peace plans presented by Ukraine and its Western masters are a road to nowhere, and the sooner Washington, London, Paris, and Brussels realize this, the better for Ukraine and the West. U.S. Deputy Ambassador Robert Wood countered that it is Russian President Vladimir Putin's single-minded pursuit of the obliteration of Ukraine and subjugation of its people that is prolonging the war that began with Moscow's 2022 invasion. Microsoft says state-backed Russian hackers broke into its corporate email system and accessed accounts of members of the company's leadership team, as well as those of cybersecurity and legal employees. In a blog post Friday, Microsoft said the intrusion began in late November and was discovered Jan. 12. The company says a very small percentage of Microsoft corporate accounts were accessed and some emails and documents were stolen. A Microsoft spokesperson had no immediate comment on which or how many members of the company's senior leadership had their email accounts breached. European Union foreign ministers say the creation of a Palestinian state is the only credible way to achieve peace in the Middle East. The ministers, meeting in Brussels on Monday, expressed concern about Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's clear rejection of the idea. The EU invited the foreign ministers of Israel, the Palestinian people, Egypt, Jordan, and a representative of the Arab League to take part in the talks. The Palestinian minister said a ceasefire in the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza is the most urgent need. The EU is the world's top provider of aid to the Palestinians, but holds little leverage over Israel. Today's news was reported by the Associated Press. This has been the World News for Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024. Thanks again for joining us at The Dunkley Report.